Hey guys, it's Carrie here, and today I'm going to show you how to paint a barn in the middle of a field of flowers. So, for this one, you will need, I'm not too sure if we're going to use the big one yet, we'll see. We're definitely going to need the medium flat brush and then the small round brush. And for this one especially, just remember that it involves a lot of layers and it's a lot of building up. So be patient and get comfortable. I have my incense going and my candles lit. Put on some music. I have my LaCroix. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get in trouble for doing that, but I love LaCroix. If you have your wine, take a sip of your wine and just get yourself nice and relaxed and ready to paint. And you know what? I forgot my plate. Of course. I thought I had everything and I didn't have a plate. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I have my plate. So we're gonna use our plate for mixing. And I always like to mix with this medium brush, just because if you mix with this one, paint gets all over this big brush and then all over your plate, and then you end up with no colors left. And of course, when I mix with this one, I really don't like it because it doesn't scoop out enough paint for me. If you want to mix with this brush or this brush, that's fine. I'm just telling you the problems I encountered with mixing with those two. So, all right, so I have my egg carton full of my paint, and I'll be mixing on this plate. This is a 12 by 12 stretch canvas, and of course you don't need this size canvas. If you want to do a rectangle canvas, you can use a rectangle canvas, absolutely. Just about composition. Obviously you would have more sky or more flowers, but this is 12 by 12. So we're gonna start off by sketching our whole barn out, okay? So what I want you to do first is we're gonna take this middle brush and we are gonna just scoop a couple scoops of white onto your plate, okay? Then you're gonna dip your, I mean, if you wanna wash your brush, you can. If you've taken my tutorials or any of my classes, you know I hate washing my brush. I'm just gonna dip my brush a tiny bit into the black, and all I want is a very light gray that I can see so I can paint. Okay? And if you mess up, it doesn't really matter. So you just have that. I'm gonna make mine a tad darker because I want you guys to be able to see it. So make yours light though. Once you have it mixed, I like to kind of spin my brush around just to get the excess off. And you're gonna put your brush into your water because you don't want it to dry out and ruin the brush. Okay, so we're gonna put an imaginary grid on our paper, on our canvas. So pretend there's an imaginary line going down horizontally and vertically, okay? Now, do the same for this. And just be aware of where everything lands compositionally. Do you have to have it like that? Absolutely not. But just be aware, especially when we do the grass. It looks like it's going, this is an imaginary line going across. It's a little bit lower than that, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it that way. I don't measure. I eyeball everything, so my originals never look anything like the ones that I do when I'm teaching. So that being said, let's get to it. So the biggest thing with doing any kind of structural things is you want to have the lines kind of correct. When you have, even if you have one line that's off, one angle off, it could make the whole thing look weird. And what I like to do is you can measure using your brush. You can kind of measure the angles in the sense where you kind of go like this and then you kind of can go like that, so you get the same sort of angle, okay? And don't worry about making a mistake. That's why we're using this gray paint, okay? We're not going in with it with black or anything like that. We're using gray, okay? So we're gonna just start with one line, and if there's an imaginary line going across here, you see that the peak probably lands about center of the canvas, okay? So this line and this line are gonna be parallel to each other. Now, it does not matter. It could be a little bit pitched this way a little bit, pitched this way a little. It does not matter. But what does matter is that this line has to be parallel to that line. And what people make a big mistake by making them not parallel, and then they go, oh, my house looks funny, like it's decrepit and falling down, even though this barn looks like it's decrepit and falling down. We don't want it to look goofy, like it never once stood in the first place. So that being said, you could kind of go like that, and we're gonna put a line going that way and a line going that way. Now, we're gonna be sketchy with our paintbrush, so don't worry, none of these lines are permanent. You're not selling your soul. It's paint. It's especially acrylic paint is extremely forgiving. It dries fast, you can paint over it, so don't worry about that. So this line is going parallel, okay? So that line's going like that. See how I have sketchy lines and it looks all like, you know, it's not a perfect straight line. I don't paint with perfect straight lines. That's not how I work. It's kind of setting you up for failure when you feel like you have to be perfect. All right, so then we're gonna have this be a peak here. So it's gonna be like a triangle here. And you could change these things later. Okay, you can make them different sizes if you want. But we always want to break it down into simplest form, okay? So I know you can't really see it too much over here, but this is just a rectangle, okay? So we're gonna put, obviously, with a rectangle, these two sides are parallel. Don't worry about all that grass. I'm gonna go like that. And I can already tell that my grass is gonna be lower than that grass, and that's fine. And I'll have more sky, a little bit more sky, that's fine. So you see this? See how I use my brush to measure this? See how all of these are parallel? Okay, so you're gonna go over to here, and you're gonna do another parallel line, like that, okay? And if you want to, you can do a little window, just to give you a visual. And you know what? I might not want it there later. I'm just gonna put it in for now. I'll make this a little bit longer. All right, so that's our decrepit little barn. Now, we are going to make just a nice little line where the grass is gonna be, okay? And you know what? We don't want this to be straight, and you're really not gonna see much of it anyway. So just put something there so you can see, you know. We went from a blank canvas to now we can kind of see something, which is gonna make it much easier to paint. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to mix a nice dark gray. Now this might be a little tiny bit confusing, or you might not trust me at first and you're not gonna wanna do it, but just try to trust me. Okay, so get that middle paintbrush nice and clean and dry, and just keep in mind that water likes to get stuck in this metal part. So I don't want you to get to a point where we have paint on this and then it kind of acts like a sponge. When you go like this, water will drip down, and we don't want that, okay? So just try to get that metal part nice and dry. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna, in a separate pile from that gray, we are going to just do 2 scoops of white. Now we're gonna make more of like a charcoal gray. Let's do 3 scoops of black. Let's see where that brings us. So now we have a much deeper gray. And you know what? We're not all gonna get the same color gray, so, you know, don't worry about it. Okay, cool, this is great. Now we're gonna make another pile that's even darker. Okay, so I put 3 scoops of black and 2 scoops of white for this pile. So now I'm just gonna add more black, less white. And it does not matter it doesn't matter if you guys have different grays than me. It absolutely does not matter. The only thing that matters is that these two have a contrast enough to where you can see the difference. Okay? So I hope you can see that contrast. Maybe I'll make this one a little bit darker so you can see it a little bit more. I know it looks different when it's on the screen. All right, so nice big piles. You can see it. They're not too different. And sometimes they're even more contrasty when they're up against each other. So if you want to add a little bit more, you know, light white to that one and a little more black to it doesn't matter. Just make them different. Okay. So now my bust brush is very gooey and painty. I don't like to paint like that, so I'm just gonna wash it off. Okay. So as you can see, these lines, if you put this next to that, these lines are a bit different, okay? Now I'm gonna leave that because I want you to see the difference between it. If you want to adjust it and make your peak a little bit wider, I want you to do that. But for me, I'm just going to leave it this way to show you that it's okay to have variations. Um, and to really not be so focused on, you know, it being so perfect, you know, because it's going to take time. And, you know, it's going to be perfect in its own way, really. So the thing about this, and the thing about when you do buildings and or anything that's like three-dimensional, boxy, the biggest thing that makes it look three-dimensional is the darkness of, you know, the highlights in the dark. So if you squint your eyes and look at this, you'll see that this part, the front part, is highlighted and this part's darker. So that's important to get that, okay? And the reds we're gonna be doing on top of all these grays later, so don't worry about that. Right now we're just getting the grays in. So what I want you to do first is I want you to take the lighter gray and I want you to paint this in here. And I know it looks really dark, don't worry about that. Just try to keep the paint nice and thin. So we are actually going to hop, oh, I totally put my, I used the wrong color paint. So this is gonna be the lighter gray. Sorry about that, guys, that's okay. I started with the lighter gray, but then I dipped my brush into the darker gray by accident. Okay, so try to keep your paint nice and thin, okay? You don't want any clumps, and we want this to be dry. But what's great about these videos is that you can actually paint thick if you really want to, and then go off and do whatever while it dries, and then come back to it. Okay, disregard all this darkness here that I used the wrong paint. Okay, I'll try to make it look lighter here. So when you get to the bottom here, I don't want this to be just a straight line going across. I want you to come back, and I like to use my brush this way. And the reason why I'm going down and making lines like this is because when we go down, when we make the grass, we're going to be going in reverse. So I don't want it to look like there's some gray line going through. You might have a hard time covering that with the green. So by doing this, it makes it a little choppy and it breaks it up a bit. So you won't see a harsh gray line. So just fill that all in, go around, make sure it's nice and thin. You don't necessarily have to have your window right now, you can do it later, but I'm gonna keep it right now. And you can adjust things as you go along. Feel free to put music on, anything of your choice. I don't use music because, you know, it might not be what you want to listen to, and it might kind of be confusing if I play any music. All right. I never like to make like perfectly, you know, solid straight lines. I like my paintings to look nice and painterly. I like to see the brush strokes. All right, so I'm just gonna mix this pile up a little bit so I don't have to wash my brush. See how lazy I am? All right, so I'm gonna start over here, just making sure that this is dark enough where I can actually see the difference. Okay, or you, more importantly, can see the difference. Okay. So I'm gonna go across like this, and I'm going to make my side. Don't worry about it being super straight or, you know, anything like that. Do the same thing as we did on the bottom. Okay. And what I'm going to have you do is actually, I'm going to have you do the roof this color too. And paint it all in. And same thing, keep it nice and thin. And what we're going to do after this is we are going to put the first layer of the background. So with this painting, we're gonna do some dry brushing, which I love to do, but some people get a little frustrated with dry brushing. And what I have to say about that is really just practice. You know, everything's weird when you first do it. It's, you know, you're kind of uncomfortable, you don't know what you're doing, but once you do it over and over and over, it gets to be a lot easier. So right now I feel kind of uncomfortable doing this spot, going, you know, doing this line. So I'm gonna just change my leverage a little bit. You can, you know, turn your canvas around so you have your leverages better, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I feel much better trying to get into these little spaces when I turn my canvas this way. And that goes for the entire time we paint, whatever we paint, you know, and this too. I want you to, of course it matters if you're right-handed or left-handed and all that stuff, so do what feels right. You're not going to do your best work when you're uncomfortable, and that's why it's important to have a nice chair that you love. Some people love to stand. You don't have to be sat at a table. You can totally stand up, whatever. So once that's all filled in, just kind of go over one more time, make sure that there's no big chunks anywhere, because you want it to dry. I'm gonna paint in my window here. You might be thinking, like, why are we doing this barn all gray if it's red? And that's just because we're doing an underpainting. Okay, this is an underpainting. It's basically the foundation we're going to use to do the rest of the painting. So it's like when you build a house, you know, before you can do all the fun stuff that, you know, makes it look good, you got to, you know, make the bones, build the bones. And that's what we're doing now. We're getting everything where it needs to go, and then we're going to build on that. Believe it or not, that looked like that in the beginning. So then you're going to take, I like to use this flat middle brush, and I like to, you can get it to be nice and sharp by kind of going like this, and then you use it sort of like a razor blade. And I use my pinky as a kickstand. And I'll go down like that, and I'm just going to make the roof. Okay. Great. All right, that's all we'll really need for now. Oh, you know what? We're going to do one more thing. Same thing. I want you to, excuse me, flatten your brush like this. And I want you to start just making lines. And again, they don't have to be perfect. These are just going to be guides for later. Just kind of get them in there. Remember, these are all parallel to each other. And it's well, a lot of my paintings, they just really don't come together until the end. But I want you to be kind of sloppy with these. Okay, I'm going to be extra sloppy so you can see that. Okay. All right. So wash that brush off. Really good, because we're going to switch it to blue. You don't want to have any gray in the blue. A little bit's okay, but too much, it'll look like a storm's coming. So we're going to get to this nice kind of bluish, grayish color there. So we're going to start with some white. Let's put, and see how it's okay if I have a little bit of gray in there, that's fine, because I'm going to add some black to this color, believe it or not. And if you look at this compared to this, I toned it down with some black to make it look less cartoony, more natural. So I have 2 scoops of white on my plate already. So I'm going to add a scoop of blue, okay? Then I'm just going to add a touch of black. And I'm definitely probably not going to get to the color I want like this. I'm going to have to adjust it, but at least this will get you a nice light blue color, okay? Now mine's a little bit too, I kind of want to neutralize mine a little bit more, some more black. So I'm going to just I personally am going to add more black. If you like that color, use that color. This is not about you guys getting to my exact color. This is about you guys getting to a color that you like. That's the important thing. And it's hard. It's hard, I understand, when you first start painting because you don't really know what you like yet. But as you do this more and more, you get to know what you like more and more. And then you take chances more and more. So what we're going to do is we are going to fill in the whole background, okay? Just be careful if this is still wet when you're going around. And we're going to do 2 layers of this. So nice and thin all the way around. This is a good time to do your edges. Okay. And, you know, if you don't want storm clouds in the back, you don't have to have storm clouds in the back. You know, some people want a sunset. This would look really pretty with a sunset. And we'll have some sunset tutorials too. And once you learn how to make sunsets, you could add your sunset to any paintings that we do. And some of you guys might, you know, some of you guys already are avid painters. And, you know, you can go off and do whatever you want. That's what's cool about this stuff. Okay, and you're going to do the same thing over here that we did over there. I don't want a straight line. I want it to be choppy. Okay, I'm actually gonna, after I do the edges here, I'm gonna shift my canvas around because my leverage is off over here. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. That way I feel more comfortable kind of getting up against this line here. Just fill it all in. I know it's hard because it doesn't really look like much when you first start. When you do these a few times, you realize that you're aware that of this and how you have to. It's a building up process and it takes a bit of time. So I think you just get used to it and you're more accepting of it. But my painters, my beginners are always kind of, they get very frustrated because they want to go from a blank canvas to that, you know, instantaneously, and it's not like that. Nothing's like that. Everything takes work. So, but that's why you feel good at the end, you know. You feel a sense of, you know, accomplishment. You feel rewarded. And there's nothing like the feeling of doing a painting and loving it. Now, when you do a painting and you don't love it, that stinks. And let me tell you that it happens to everybody. It happens to professional painters, you know, everybody. I've worked on paintings for way longer than I wanted to. And then I just, for some reason, it just doesn't come together. I can't get it something to work out, or it doesn't click right for me. And then sometimes I do paintings super quick and I'm like, whoa, I love that one. It only took me 30 minutes. So, you know, a lot of it has to do with, you know, what mindset you're in. I can't really paint when I'm frustrated, or if I'm not in the mood. I really don't do my best work, obviously. So, you know, make sure you're in a good mood, in the painting mood, and be open. And, you know, be ready to learn, but also ready to make mistakes. I learn, every time I paint, I learn something. And I always make mistakes. I still make mistakes. I'll always make mistakes. So as long as I learn from them, then they're worth it. Alrighty. So now this looks like something out of a Tim Burton movie. But we'll make it look pretty, don't worry. So you're going to wash that brush off, and you are going to dry it off really good. All right. So I typically work from dark to light, okay? And that's why the house looks like this, is because I took all the shadows And I did that first. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing. I use the same formula for pretty much everything I do. So we're gonna do the same thing for the grass. We're gonna do the darker grass first, and then we'll highlight with the lighter colors. And then at the end, we go and do the lights and the darks and kind of like make the contrast more, just to make things pop. But for now, we're gonna do the darkest first, and then we're gonna kind of go around in a circle. So we did the barn, the sky, and the grass first layer. Then we're gonna do the second layer. Barn, sky, grass. Third layer, barn, sky, grass, okay? And that's how we're gonna do it. And the reason why I do it that way is because when we hop to another section, it just allows the other sections to dry. And then by the time we get back to them, we're able to, paint over them with no problem. And it's good too if you want to adjust things and if you want to change things, it's good because it'll be nice and dry. So I used up a lot of my plate. So if you want to use another plate, use another plate. I'm going to use another plate. I hope you have another plate. If not, just try to find a little spot. I reuse my plates too when they're dry. So, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some green. Let's put 4 scoops of green onto your plate. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, and again, if you wanna wash your brush, I'm not gonna wash my brush. I'm just gonna dip my brush into the black, and I'm gonna add it to the green. And you should get like a nice dark green. A nice foresty looking green. But I'm still gonna add some white to this. Okay, not a whole lot, just a little bit. And it's just gonna make it a little bit creamy because it covers better when it's a little bit creamier. Plus our palette's very creamy, so we're gonna stick with that. All right. So again, my brush is gooey and I wanna make some, you know what, actually I'm not gonna wash it yet. Let's cover the canvas first. So all we're gonna do is, I want you to start kind of making strokes go up like this. And I want you to just get used to doing the blades of grass like that, okay? I don't expect you to have actual anything that looks like blades yet. That comes later, but I just want you to get into the groove of kind of making the brush strokes different. Because as we go, this is the way we're going to be doing our blades of grass. Up this way, and we're going to also use the smaller paintbrush, so. But for now, we are going to cover the entire white canvas. I don't want to see any white after this. Also, it's very, very, very hard to know what the true color of something is when it's compared to this bright white canvas. So that's another reason why I like to just get rid of it. And don't worry about if it's transparent. When you come up to here, I like to put my brush this way, like it's little blades of grass. And I like to just overlap some of that, all these other colors you did. I don't want to see any white of the canvas. So all those little in between spots kind of get, and don't worry if there's a little bit like those little, if you see like little dots of white, don't worry about that. We're going around and doing another layer. So this is more work than the actual details later. I feel like just getting these 2 nice foundation layers on is more work than all the rest of the stuff that makes it look pretty. So just get that in there. Take the time. It's important to take the time to do that. Just paint it in there. I always find that I sleep really good after I paint. I don't know what it is. It's when I paint or do yoga, I sleep like a champ. So it must have something to do with getting into like a meditative state. I mean, it makes complete sense. Well, if I watch TV before bed, I have a really bad sleep. So this is very, very good for you. All right, so when you do that, I want you to do the edges. Some people don't do the bottom. It's like I have to do the bottom because I know it's white, so I can't. Just knowing that it's there bothers me. But if it doesn't bother you and you don't want to do it, then you don't have to do it. So I'm going to do the edges too. And the reason why we do the edges is because when you hang it on your wall, it just looks a lot cleaner. And I didn't do the edges of the blue on that side. Whoops. So I'll do that in my second round. All right. So just go around and make sure there's any puddles anywhere. Make sure it's nice and thin. See how these brush strokes go up? I love that about that. You have all these soft clouds and then you have all this crazy grass. I just love it. It's like I want to be there. I think I paint places where I want to actually go. All right, then you're going to wash that brush off. Now we have our underpainting. So we're actually going to just go around and do another layer of this, and then we'll get into the work, the fun stuff. All right. So again, dry that off really good. Put that back. Let's see. Let's switch this. All right. So now we're going to go back to the lighter gray, the gray that you have in the front. All I want you to really do is kind of, I know I told you to do those lines, but we're just going to kind of go over in between them. I don't want them to be these harsh lines. I just want you to know that they're there visually. So you can go over them a little bit, but I still kind of want you to leave a little bit there so you can kind of see them. Okay. Just as a guide later. All right. Now we're going to switch to the darker gray, and we're just going to put another layer in there, just so I really don't want to see any of the canvas after that. And I want you to adjust any lines that you see that you have. This is the time to do it. If you want to adjust the pitch of the roof, now is a good time. But it also does not mean that you can't do it later. But because we're doing, we're working on the positive space and the negative space, being the negative space being the sky and the positive space being the barn, it's a good time to adjust. And don't worry if you can't see the difference between this side of the barn and the roof. We will pull them apart later. Okay. And even if your roof's a little slanted, I mean, it works for stuff like this. I'm gonna switch the pitch. I feel much better this way. Okay. Get that in there. All right. Excuse me. And then I'm going to do the middle here. I really like to use the flat part of the brush here to help me with my lines. And I definitely like to use my pinky a lot. So between having some balance, some people do this whole thing. I don't feel good about doing this. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just, you have to find what works for you. Everybody's different, okay? So between getting a nice steady hand, using your brush, making it nice and sharp, and changing your leverage, all those things are little things that help you, okay? If it doesn't feel comfortable, then you shouldn't be doing it that way. You should find a way that is comfortable. Okay. Ooh, well, that's not good. See, everybody makes mistakes. All right. So now that we did that, I'm going to have you again just kind of, I know you have paint on that brush. Just try to take it off a little bit because we're going to dry brush with this brush, which means you just don't want a lot of paint on that brush. Okay. So I just want you to put really, really sloppy lines. Doesn't have to be the same places at all. Just put some really sloppy lines in there. Whoop, whoop. So dry brushing is just when you don't have a lot of paint on your brush. It's basically dry. You just have a little tiny bit of paint. I see a little white piece that's bothering me. Okay. Now we're going to do round 2 on the sky. So I'm going to wash off my brush. Now, if you want to change the color of your sky, I mean, this color is just like my base, which is, you barely see it, you know, because I'm going to put clouds all over everything. But if you don't like your color of your sky, then this is the time to change it. If you do like the color of your sky, and you just use the same exact pile of paint to do a whole nother layer. And again, keep in mind the leverage thing. And if you get a little bit of gray inside your paint, it really doesn't matter at all. Just mushing around so you can't see it. Plus we're gonna be putting clouds on this. So acrylic paint is extremely forgiving. I'd say if we were using, you know, watercolors, it's not, definitely not as forgiving. I mean, you could definitely go overboard. You can work into a painting way too much and then it'd be ruined. But you're also using paper most of the time, and paper rips. And canvases are strong, so you can paint. I've done many paintings over top of each other on one canvas. So you're going to do the same thing that we did before. It doesn't have to be in the same spots. You can overlap your grass. It does not matter. I just don't want it to be a line going across. So every time we go around to do a new layer, you should see the painting coming out more and more. And if you run out of paint, it really does not matter. You just make yourself some more. And even if your sky is a couple different colors, it absolutely does not matter, because we're gonna be putting clouds all over the place. Like, I totally am running out of paint right now, and I'm gonna definitely have to mix more. And that's okay. Again, spread it around so it's nice and thin. And yeah, I wish I could hear what you guys are saying. I wish you could talk back to me, but we can't for now. But we will be doing live YouTube tutorials, or maybe we'll try it on Facebook. This whole technology thing is very new to me. I'm so bad with that stuff. I cannot believe I figured out how to make a YouTube video, and like, my children can do it. It's pretty sad. But I'm definitely more of a one-on-one person. I can't wait till this is all over so I can start teaching again. But we will continue to do these YouTube channels. Well, that is way different. Whoops, sorry. We'll continue to do these for you. This is just a branch of what we are going to be offering. So we absolutely are planning on, you know, continuing traveling and painting with everybody. So this is the next best thing. So sometimes you have to put it on the canvas to see if the colors, it definitely looks different on your plate than when you put it on the canvas. So, and mine is not the same color at all. So I'm just gonna, the way I'm gonna get away with that is just by kind of mushing it around. When I get to here, I'll just kind of mix it in. The sky definitely has more than one color, for sure. I'm gonna turn my canvas. I'm gonna do this. I hope everybody is using their time in positive ways and getting stuff done. And I know it's hard to say enjoy this, but you know, enjoy it as much as you can. And really, it is a great time to do things that you put off. I know I painted my kitchen, I painted my hallway. Oh my Lord, I made a bunch of YouTube videos. I delivered 25 color boxes. That was cool. So that was a project that I had in the works last year. This whole YouTube tutorial thing I had in the works last year, and I actually never got around to it. I bought all the stuff to make the color boxes. Well, if you don't know what color boxes are, we've been delivering all this stuff. It's basically everything you need to do one of these tutorials, all boxed up, and then I delivered them around town. I still deliver them around town. And I went to start it last year, and it kind of fell through because we had the studio and we were like really busy, and it kind of sat in my basement. And yeah, then this happened, and I'm like, oh, this is a great time to use all that stuff I bought and to finally do the YouTube channels. So it's funny how life works. I wasn't ready to do it last year, but totally ready to do it this year. It's pretty cool. All right, so wash that middle brush off, dry it off really good. I'm gonna switch plates. I'm gonna go back to my green. And actually, I think I'm going to go down a bit with this gray. You don't have to do that. I just missed some. I don't want there to be any white in between. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to come up with the green. And now, as you can see, the second color coats way better. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the materials that we're using. If you're an avid painter and you do a lot of these tutorials, you probably just have, your own stuff, and you don't have to use the same kind of paint as me. I do only use these colors, so I know sometimes if you go to places, they'll give you all the colors you need, like browns, and I don't do that. Unless I have a huge group and I don't want to mix brown with them. But for this, we're gonna make brown, which isn't hard at all. And knowledge is power, so look at that. It's good to learn how to do things. So, anyway, I use everything from Michaels. I buy huge gallons of paint, and if you paint a lot, I would definitely suggest, I love this paint that I get from Michaels. It's called Artist Loft, and it comes in nice big jugs. So that's what I get, and it lasts me a long time. If I use those little tiny tubes, they go really fast, but I do paint a lot. So, but you find what you like, and you stick with it, and you can do all the same stuff we're doing now with your paint. It does not have to be the same paint. Hey, if you want purple grass, you can do purple grass. I'm not going to tell you not to. There's definitely these tutorials are about teaching you techniques. And what's cool about art is that you learn, and then you learn all these rules, and then you get to break all the rules. It just scary to break rules in the beginning when you don't really know them. So, and trust me, I know some people when I paint with groups, I get a lot of people that are like, I don't want to do anything that you don't do. I'm going to do exactly what you do. And I totally understand that, because it's scary and you want guidance. But, when you do this enough, you are going to want to go off on your own. There will be a point where you're going to want to go off on your own and do your own thing and take chances, take risks, and not want to copy something. So, because once you know how to do a tree, once you learn techniques on how to paint a tree or grass or a barn, you don't need to look at a picture anymore. You just have to understand about lighting, perspective, contrast, all those things. Once you understand that, you could apply it to anything, right? It's pretty cool. But at the same time, I don't expect you to jump to that right away. Okay, so I'm going to do my last layer on the bottom. I hope everybody's doing okay. And this, my friends, is our underpainting. So we're gonna build everything onto this. Okay. So wash your brush off really good. You can see I have, my paint's a little bit wet still. That's okay. Take a drink of your water, your tea, your LaCroix, your wine. I have a can because I, like many artists, have a tendency to wash my brush in my drink. So, you know, it happens. I've drank my, you know, dirty water lots of times. I've painted with coffee, wine, you name it. And it's okay. I'm still alive. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you guys do now is I am gonna teach you how to make brown. So we're gonna go back to the barn. We're gonna work on the barn. We're gonna give this background a little bit of time to dry, and then I'm gonna show you how to dry brush those clouds. Very, very easy. So the base color of brown is actually yellow, orange. So orange is made by adding red to yellow, but there's more yellow than red. So red overpowers yellow. So what I did was I put 3 scoops of yellow on my plate. Then from the edge, I took some red and added it to that. And then you'll get a nice color orange. Okay, so you have that. Make sure it's all mixed in. All right, so what I want to do next is add some blue to that. Not too much, but it's going to make sure it's all mixed because you can't get a true sense of what color it is till you mix it all in. So you're going to get like a muddy orange color. Okay, so you can gradually add some blue. Okay, so once you have this like muddy kind of color, you're actually going to add some black. And again, you don't need a whole lot of black. It's going to overpower it. But the more black you add to that, the darker, obviously the darker it's going to get. And we don't, even though there's some lighter browns in there, we're not going to go there yet. We're going to do some dark brown first. And, you know, just keep adding black until you get a nice chocolatey brown. And you can adjust it too. I mean, you can add a little bit more red, a little bit more yellow if you want. I think I'm going to add a little bit more yellow and red. If you get a blue color, that means you have too much yellow and blue, because yellow and blue, I mean, I'm sorry, if you get a green hue to it, you have too much yellow and blue. So if that happens, if you have like a baby poop kind of green, it makes sense because that means, you know, yellow and blue make green and you have yellow and blue in there. So you're going to try to counteract that by adding red, okay? And just play around with it until you get like a nice brown. Now, of course, your brown doesn't have to look like my brown at all. So wash your brush off. Dry it off. And now we are going to put some of that brown. So we're not gonna put a whole lot of brown in. We're kind of gonna dry brush it in there. And we're gonna put lighter brown in there too. So I just kind of want you to put some in there. I went across like that. And I went across like that. And here's where I like it to be very painterly. I like it to I like you to see the brush strokes and just have fun. Okay. You put some, again, do that razor blade thing where, again, you don't need a lot of paint on here. I'm just gonna put a little bit on this side. You don't have to like cover everything. You know, you can just kind of leave some of that dark on the edges. Here, I think I'm going to come out a tiny bit, come down a little bit more with my roof. Okay. So what you're going to do now is you're just going to add, now I like to keep my my original pile. I'm just going to take a little corner of it and add some white because I want you to have a lighter color. Not too much lighter. You don't want it like crazy lighter. But again, we're going to do some dry brushing. So we're going to, we don't need a whole lot. And we're just going to put a lighter, put some lighter bits in there. And I'm not going to go crazy trying to make mine look like my original because I don't really care. Originals are originals because they're valuable because they're the originals. And there's no other one like that. So we're just going to put a highlight over on this side of the brown. And even if you want to go in even lighter, you can do that too. I always like to say lighter, less. The lighter you go, the less you put. So I'm just going to put little hints of a bit lighter. Okay, and then let's wash that brush off. Actually, I forgot one thing. Little highlight there. Okay, sorry about that. Totally forgot that part. All right, so the next part's kind of fun. Now we're going to use that small brush. So I'm going to switch plates to my grays again. If yours is all when you're in the same place, then don't worry about it. So if you still have some of that, you know what? No, mine's almost dried up, so I'm not going to do that to you. So remember the original gray that we did here, that I have here? We had our lighter gray, and then we had our darker gray. I just want you to dip your little brush into white, and I just want you to take an edge, and I just want a little bit of a lighter color. So you still have that if you want to go back to it, but now you're just kind of making a little bit of a lighter color here. And again, I just want it to be light enough that you can see the difference. Now, I'm gonna want you to kind of take it off your brush so you don't have a lot on your brush. Now we're just gonna do, because I want you to dry brush, okay? Now, we're not gonna go all the way to the top, and we're not gonna go all the way to the bottom. We're gonna dry brush some planks of wood in here, okay? Now, I don't want your lines to be crazy like these dark, stripes. What's cool about doing barns is that everything looks decrepit and old, and the more decrepit it looks, the better. Okay, so I'm just doing some in between, like highlights in between the wood planks, like up here too. So make sure you dry brush. If you're having a hard time, it might be because you have too much paint on your brush. Dry brushing, when I say you don't need a lot of paint on your brush, people definitely underestimate what I mean by that. You barely need any paint on your brush. So that's where we're going with that. So what I want you to do now, you could pause if I'm going too fast. What you're going to do now, well, finish. If you need to pause, because I'm going to move on. So pause until you're ready to move on. If you're ready to move on, I don't want to confuse you. We're going to go back to our original lighter gray. So the one that you made that color out of, the pile that you made that color out of, and you're just going to dry brush this. Use the same technique, and you're going to dry brush some planks over on this side. But again, don't worry. You're barely going to be able to see these anyway. So we're just going to kind of And if you want to get technical, they get skinnier as they go back, but don't worry about that. Okay. And that's where the corner is going to be. All right, cool. All right, so our barn's getting there. Now, I'm going to show you how to dry brush the clouds. I love dry brushing. Please don't hate me if you don't, but I absolutely love it. Okay, so now that you know what it's like to use not a lot of paint when you dry brush, I like to just dip. I never dry brush by dipping and then going straight into dry brushing ever. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm such a slob. I'll use my tablecloth, but I don't want you to do that unless you really want to do that. But you really don't need a lot of paint. So the way you start it out is if you just kind of go in there and you make different shapes of the clouds. But see how I have barely any paint? Okay, and I like to brush on in a circular motion until it disappears. Okay, so the brightest part of the cloud is going to be actually where we started, and then as you pull down, it disappears. Okay. If you want to reload. So wherever you want the brightest, that has the most paint, that's where you start. Don't, if this is the first time you're doing it and you're frustrated, just give yourself a break. And of course, I'm not going to make my clouds the same way as I did there, because, I mean, that's just silly. I'll make my clouds different. Again, once you learn how to make clouds, then you can do them your own way. That's the beauty of this. You decide where they go, And, when I work with kids, they're so awesome. They get really creative. They'll write their name in the clouds. I mean, they have no fear. I don't know when we lose that whole thing, but it stinks what happens. But just remember, there's nothing to be afraid of with this. I mean, failing, is that what people are afraid of? Failing? I mean, the good thing that happens, when you fail at something is that you practice and get better at it. And there's really no point where you're perfect at it. There's no absolutely perfect pieces of art. I mean, it's all in the eye of the beholder. Some people like a certain type of art, some people don't. And it comes to my next thought where it is really my job to teach you skills and techniques, but it's also my job to help you embrace your style. And then people laugh at me because they'll be like, I don't have a style, I don't even do art, or I never did art. And everybody has a style, everybody has a signature. You use the same exact hand to paint with that you use to write your signature, and you have a style of handwriting with your signature. So why would you not have a style of painting? Everybody does. I mean, we don't go to museums to see all the same style of painting. That would be completely boring, and nobody would go. So we go to see everybody's different styles, and we seem to appreciate other people's styles, but for some strange reason, adults have a hard time embracing their own. But it's funny because I tell my students all the time, I really honestly never met anybody that I couldn't teach how to paint, or that I thought couldn't learn how to paint. If you can't learn how to paint, it's because you won't learn how to paint. That I really truly believe that, because thousands of years ago, if you wanted a house, you built a house. If you wanted anything, you had to build it. You'd have to make it. Can you imagine life being like that now? I mean, it's rewarding to build stuff. I mean, especially stuff from IKEA. You have like no real directions. I mean, we built our kitchen years ago from IKEA, and I'll tell you, when we were done with that, man, I was so proud of myself. But I feel, you feel proud after you complete anything. You're like, man, look what I just did. Look what I just did. When you give birth and you make two humans. I have two boys, and those are my biggest masterpieces. But yeah, that was a real sense of accomplishment. So keep going, and honestly, just have fun. And I like to start a cloud, like as you pull down and you have the lighter clouds down here, I like to kind of overlap in that section, and so you can see another cloud. I get to a point where I had, my brush from dry brushing gets all funky. You definitely want to like put your dry brushing brushes aside and use them for dry brushing. But for this, this time, it's all right. It's kind of like your toothbrush. After so long, you've got to replace it. When you scrub hard. Okay. And just remember that there's going to be like flowers popping up, so you don't have to go into any crazy detail if you're going to have flowers popping up over here. So when you're done, just kind of go over it and make sure that it's the way you want it, that the highlights are exactly where you want. You can even kind of go back to maybe the tippity top parts just to add it, make it pop a little bit more. I feel like this needs a tornado. I have a barn painting that I did. It's awesome. It's got like this awesome tornado coming in the background. It's so cool. And I realized I was probably like the only real one that wanted to paint it. All right, so when you go around, kind of highlight those tips. Definitely make them pop. Again, if you want to kind of get in there with your brush a little bit, I like to turn mine to the side, my canvas, so I can kind of get that cloud in behind that house and not make it look weird, because I did not feel comfortable doing it the other way. And really only you know when it's done. You know when you're satisfied with it. So, yeah, just woo, sorry. Gosh, these canvases have a mind of their own. Yeah, you can just kind of go back in. Highlight those things. And I mean, there's so many clouds in the world that there's bound to be clouds that look like your clouds at some point. I've had kids put pictures in the clouds and UFOs. They're so fun. But yes, feel free. If you want to put UFOs in there, do it. All right, I think I'm all right. I think this storm is just about coming. All right. We are going to go to the grass. I'm going to switch my plate to my green grassy plate. Okay, so I am going to make some more green, and I'm going to neutralize this green with some black again. Okay, so now I am going, the reason why I'm neutralizing it is just to tone it down so it doesn't look so like bright green and it looks more earthy. I mean, typically I don't neutralize something with black unless it's we're doing something from the earth, which we are. But if I were to do a bowl of fruit, I would be neutralizing green with the red, which is its complement. And we'll get into that later, but I don't want to overwhelm you right now. So now that I have a neutralized green, I'm going to make a lighter green, and the way I like to make my lighter green is by adding a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white. So, you know, you could always add more. Just think that way. You know, don't go overboard. Tiny bits at a time until you get a color that you like. Now, sometimes it looks, you think it's a lot lighter on the plate, and then when you go to paint, you're like, I can't even see it. So just make sure. I'm going to actually, once I have it mixed, I'm going to actually wash my brush off because, again, it's very gooey. So this isn't about covering everything we just did. This is about softening what we just did. So you're going to take this brush, dry it off really good. God, this video is going to be like 2 hours long. I don't even know. Whoop, totally is. That's okay. But you guys can pause it and then come back to it tomorrow if you want to. But I'm in it, so I'm in it to win it. All right. So you don't want a gooey brush, but you want to have paint on it. And again, we're going to kind of go with these brush strokes going up like this. Okay. So we're going to soften everything really nicely. And we don't want it to look like it's a whole bunch of lines, you know. We want it to be, when you find yourself starting to make it, like it starts looking like it's repetitive or there's some kind of pattern going on, just remember you want it to be very random. You know, somebody didn't plant these seeds perfectly an inch, you know, away from each other. And again, this is softening up our grass. So it's not necessarily that we're covering it all, because you can still see some darks through it. We're just softening it. Again, you want to overlap when you get to the house up here. I like to use my brush going vertically like that. That's how I feel comfortable. Okay, same thing over here. It's funny, like doing these videos, like you're totally talking to yourself. Like I feel like my camera's a person. I don't really know if I'll ever get used to this. Non-human interaction. All right, so you're gonna go all the way across like that. And you're probably, I don't know, you might not be wondering this, but if you are wondering, like, well, I see darks in there, why are we covering them? It's just because we're going to come back at the end with darks. And we're going to kind of go over them. That's when we come back at the ending with like highlights and darks and okay. Go back in there. I know it seems like it's a lot. Thank God it's only a 12 by 12 canvas. But all the hard work will be worth it in the end. Of course, when you put the flowers in, that really kind of makes it. I would definitely like to know what you guys would want to paint, so feel free to go to our Facebook page, or I think you can comment on YouTube. thought I saw a thing about comments on there. But yeah, if there's something specific you want to do, I know I've had some people ask about lighthouses. Those are fun. All right. So as you can see, you could definitely, as we go around, you could definitely see it coming out more and more, which is good. All right, so you're gonna wash that brush off, dry it off. And now, let's get the other brush dried off too. Hope everybody's doing good. Okay. All right. So this part's a little funky. I shouldn't really start off by saying that because that's going to set you up for feeling like it has to be funky, but it doesn't have to be. So you see all this dark that's under here and under here. So we're going to put that in. Okay, so you remember that pile of dark that you had for this side? I want you to just add remember how we used white to make this a little bit lighter? We're going to use black to make a tiny section of this guy just a little bit darker. We don't want black, but we want like a nice dark gray. Okay? And then I want you to take the black off. And what we're going to do is we are going to make this shadow under here, okay? But we're also going to dry brush it down. So once you do a line all the way, you stick your elbow in the green paint. No, I'm kidding, you don't do that. Only I do that. All right, so then you're just gonna soften this until it doesn't have a hard edge anymore. So you're gonna dry brush this shadow down. So you don't want a hard edge. The hardest edge is where it hits the roof. The peak of that roof. Okay? That's where you want the hardest edge. And then it has you're gonna do the same thing up here in the peak. And just make sure, just soften it so it's not a straight line. You know, I don't want a straight line. Okay, so I can already tell you my leverage is really off right now. So I'm gonna go like this. Do the same thing over here. And I'm going to soften it. It's like a gradient, like it's darker up here and it gets lighter. Edges. If you need to wipe your brush off, you can wipe your brush off. Just do your best not to have like a hard edge there. It's almost like you brush it until it's like an eraser or a smudging tool or something. All right, so that's the shadow under there. So now we want to put a shadow under here too. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to kind of put that shadow under there, and then we want to just bring it on out. So we are actually going to put reds on top of this. Believe it or not. And I lost one of my slats in there, so I'm just going to go back and put it in there. So that's what's cool about, look at how easy it is just to put those back in there. Not a big deal. Okay. All right. That was probably the most confusing part of this whole thing. All right, so now you're gonna take the same dark color, and you're just gonna make a little bit of a border around this window. And again, I'm all about the leverage. I can't, for me, I have to get the right angle here. All right. So got your window. And then, again, pause me at any time. Then you're going to take your lighter gray, the house color gray, that original one from this side, and I want you to dry brush just highlights. Keep the black on the edges, just highlights right in the middle of those black lines. Okay. And you're also going to take that. Let's see if this is lighter. You're going to do a nice highlight on that edge with the gray, a highlight on that edge with that same gray. All right, so you might be like, well, I'm going to lose it on that side. I know for me, I can't. One of my edges I can't see over here. Just all you have to do is go back with that darker color. If you lost it, and just put it back in there. Okay. And you could always go back later if you want it lighter. Later. All right, that's better. All right. Everybody okay? It's funny asking that when I can't hear you, but I hope everybody's okay. So let's let that sit for a bit. And let's move to the grass. All right, so we need to make a lighter color. So I like to mix inside the piles. Just because it's like right next to the pile, my previous pile, so I can see what color, like make sure it matches and stuff. So I'm neutralizing the green first. And I like to, again, use yellow to lighten it, and white. It does not matter what kind of green you get to, I just want it lighter than your previous light green. Which might take a little bit of mixing. I love how lighter color greens look like they have yellow and they're like limey. I really like that. Okay, so we're gonna put that brush there. Now we are gonna take this small brush and we are going to do kind of random blades of grass. Very random. Try to be very random. And you're going to love this one. So some of them you're going to come up into our sky. Okay? And some of them you're going to come up into your barn. So see these big guys over here? We're going to have a couple. So here's a little trick to get your paintbrush sharp. You can either twist it, or you could do the flat thing, like the razor blade thing. And you want to make sure your leverage, is good too. And you have that pinky or whatever way you're holding your hand steady. Use that. And just make sure you don't need a lot of paint on your brush for that. And of course, you definitely don't have to put them in the same places I'm putting them. Okay? This is your painting. And again, as you can see, it does not have to be the same color green as I have. I mean, you can do whatever color green you want. You're gonna put some random pieces around. Have some coming up there. Some coming around there. See, I'm going in all different directions here. That's what you want. I have all this goopy paint down here. I know it's hard to be random with this, I know, because your tendencies want to kind of make some kind of pattern, but try to make it as random as possible. And of course, they do not have to be the same sizes. I do not expect you to do that. This is just to kind of give it some dimension. When you start doing these lights and darks, you're starting to see that, you know, some of the grass is in the foreground, some of it's in the background. Little tricks to show distance. And please feel free, you can message one of us, either me or Jenna, through Facebook if you guys have any questions, if you have trouble with anything. I've had people text me their paintings and say, like, I'm having trouble with this, and they'll circle the part where they have trouble with, and, you know, that's totally awesome. I am totally down for that. And of course, when we're done being quarantined, we can paint live. Yay! I'm a people person. I miss people. I've resorted to talking to my camera. I think I made a YouTube channel just for company. It's pretty sad, but oh well. All right. Now we're getting cracking. Okay, so now we're gonna go to see how that original green's over here. I don't have much of it, so I'm gonna make another dark green, but I want it even darker than my first dark green. So that means I just want to add a little bit more black. Because when you put it on here, I want you to be able to notice it. So I'm gonna go back to my stems over here. I put now I'm gonna put, think about where you want some random flowers to be. I'm gonna put these dark stems. Actually, I think I'm gonna make mine a little bit darker. I'm not sure you guys can see these when they're in here. Just think about where you might want them. Just kind of put some around. It's really going to give this, the grass much more dimension too. So it's really just using the highlights and the darks to do that. So think about where you want the flowers to really be, because what I'm going to have you do after this is actually make a stem to the flowers. I'm sorry, I don't know what the heck this thing is called, but I'll show you in a second. Anywhere, it's almost like, I don't know, when I was doing it, I felt like it was like, you know, when your umbrella, it's windy and it flips upside, like inside out. That's like what this shape is, okay? But you know what, well, let's wait on that. That's too many things at once. So let's make these lines. Okay. So again, it's not like we're covering everything we did, we're just adding to it. All right. And you can, it's hard to know when you're absolutely done, but again, you can come back to it later. Okay. All right, so let's work on the barn a little bit. Let's let this bottom half dry. All right, so let's get these brushes cleaned off and dried. Okay, so we are going to make a dark red color. So we're gonna take 2 scoops of red somewhere on your plate. We're gonna actually add green to that until you get like a nice dark red. Remember, you can go slow. Now with red, because we have to add white, we just have to make sure we don't get like a pink. And I mean, this is a pink color. Your eye doesn't see it that way because you just see it as a red barn, but there's actually pink in there. So we're making dark red, but we're also going to add, it almost looks like maroon. We're still going to add a tiny bit of white to that just to make it creamy. And my brush has really been working hard here. So I'm gonna actually switch to my little brush. So what we're gonna do is now we're gonna really dry brush inside these. So remember how we were doing the highlights of the inside of the slats? We're gonna do the same thing. So we're just gonna kind of dry brush nicely into that shadow color we did up there. You don't need a whole lot of paint at all. Just kind of stop when you get to the top. And when you get to the bottom, with these blades of grass, you're going to go in the reverse, okay? So you're going to go down, down, down. That, and kind of just make it disappear when it goes into that shadow. And remember, at the end, we're gonna have another opportunity to really get like those lights and darks, those contrasts going. Okay, especially up here, you want it to just disappear into that shadow. Just disappear. Don't worry about that window. If you get some red on that window, don't worry about it. Okay, just get that all around. Take your time with this, you know. Have fun. Go around that stem that we made. So there's going to be flowers all over this, so don't worry about that. I just want you to take it nice and easy. Same thing underneath the window. Just want to dry brush right down into all those blades of grass. Okay. So we're gonna put I want you to go around the blades of grass, very light with this same color, really really light. It's just the smallest hint of red over here of the barn. Okay, don't worry about some black going in between the. You don't need to have it perfect. Just go around all those blades. Okay, so you still want that to be dark over there. Okay. So you might think that the contrast isn't as contrasty as that, but that's because we're just gonna go in with a lighter red now. So you're gonna add a little bit of, again, I like to take a corner of whatever color I was using. And you don't have to go crazy lighter. Just, and again, dry brushing, so you don't need a lot of paint on your brush. You're just gonna kind of go in the middle. Keep the edges dark. See how I'm just doing the middle so it's nice and soft. And of course, this takes some practice. Some people pick up on it really easily. I notice people who do makeup tend to dry brush a lot. They feel more comfortable dry brushing. I think that's just because, makeup's art and just they're comfortable with brushes. Okay. And once you have that, you're going to do it again. Add a little bit more white. So the reason why I'm doing steps is because you don't want to highlight, you don't want the contrast to be overwhelming, okay? And see, I'm going lighter, but I'm putting less. I'm covering less. I'm only going to cover the middle now. That. Do some up here. Okay, I'm happy. So now the contrast should be a lot more between here and there. And you can go as light as you want. Like if you want to go in lighter, go in lighter. I might go a little tiny bit lighter. But all I want to stress is just go slow. Okay? You could always go lighter. Okay. So it's almost like we're doing like a glaze. I don't know if anybody's done a glaze before, but it's like when you do the tones underneath and then you glaze on the top. It's sort of like what we did. All right. So if you want to touch up anything, if you want to make your roof a little bit darker, whatever, you could do that now. I'm going to make the inside of the window a little bit darker. Now, I'm not going to make it black. It's going to be a tiny bit lighter than black. So I'm just going to go inside the window. I just added like a touch of white to black. Go inside that. Make that window in there. Okay. Then go around, and I like to kind of go with that color, and I like to kind of come down with some lines like this, just to make it a little bit more contrasty there. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I definitely don't want it to look like there's stripes coming down. Okay. It's really, get it to the way you like it. And step back, do a little bit, step back, do a little bit more. All right, while we let that dry, we are gonna come and get an even lighter yellow. I know it's annoying, sorry, but the more contrasts we have, the better, the more pops. So again, I like to use some yellow and some white to make that pop. So this is it for, this is our last time. We go lighter, and then it's almost like a lime green. Okay, and this is really going to make it look like there's a lot of grass in there. So again, when you see yourself kind of doing, like, getting in some kind of pattern, try to get out of it. And if you want to put some highlights over in these guys, just to let it stand out from the barn a little bit, you could do that. So as you can see, some of our paintings are a little bit more complex than others, and Jenna teaches differently than I teach, and it's all okay. You'll see different ways teachers teach, and you got to find a way that works for you, because everybody's different. So you find something that clicks and go with it. And there's so many of these painting tutorials out to choose from, so you'll definitely find somebody who you click with and learn from. All right, so I'm gonna put a little highlight in these guys. All right, so you're gonna take this same color, and we are gonna make, wherever you want your flower to go, you're just gonna kind of do like an upside down umbrella shape, but with dots. So this is going to be like the background of your actual flower. Actually, this green is underneath all the white ones that I did. Believe it or not. So the thing about painting too is it's not just about learning new skills and things. It's about seeing things differently. Okay, so when you start painting a lot, you'll start seeing things in nature, and you'll be like, oh, that's how, I know how to make that color of the light shining on the grass. I just have to mix this, and that. Just acknowledging that there's different colors out there, and you'll start, talking to yourself and saying things like, I know how to draw that, and I would just have to, this line goes this way and that way, and it's cool. So all these down here, you're gonna do the same thing. So pick wherever you want these flowers to go, and you're just gonna kind of put this umbrella type thing up. It's like inside out umbrella. Oh, just do the main ones, really. We don't have to do the white's the last thing we do, so. And we're almost done, guys. So if you see all those little like white flowers in here, all these little guys, you don't have to do this for that. These are just for the main ones. So let's talk about perspective. Obviously, the closer something is to you, the larger it appears. And with painting, that's a great way to make something look like it's going back in the distance. So obviously these flowers that are up closer are going to be bigger than the flowers that are back there. If you want to do another coat on these guys, you can, so you can see them a little bit better. And obviously, I would go nuts if I tried to put flowers exactly where I put flowers in the original. But see how I'm just kind of using my brush like polka dotty shapes? And really where they stand out is up here. When we do the beautiful white, it's going to really stand out. And you can feel free to practice on your plate and stuff if you feel, you know, like you're not ready to paint all over all the work we just did. And trust me, I get how nerve-wracking that is. Totally. And it definitely looks funny at first with just this green. But I promise it's gonna look good. Just be patient. You might wonder why we're even doing the green. It just gives the flowers a little bit more dimension. It's like they almost look like little mushrooms or something. We're gonna actually go back into the dark green real quick before we get to the white, and then I promise you we're done. I mean, I lose complete track of time when I'm painting. I could be abducted by aliens in the meantime and have no idea. That's how focused I get. It's crazy. I mean, that would be crazy, man. That would explain a lot. Okay, so do that. When you're happy with it, wash your brush. And of course, this painting, a lot of it is like at the end where you do the finishing touches and you're like, oh, okay. The white kind of just does it at the end. So I'm going to go back to that dark green that I'm out of, so I have to make more. And we are going to, this is fun. This is where the inside out umbrella thing comes from. So when you go to do this, the bottom of these flowers, make sure you have a nice point. You can either use it like a razor blade or use it twisted around. You're gonna make it look like, almost like it's the foot of a bird upside down, but it's like, it reminds me of when your umbrella goes inside out. We're gonna just make those lines. And again, you don't have to do them on every single flower, just on the ones that you want to stand out. And while you have this out, you might as well, you know, anywhere you want to make a stem a little bit more pronounced, now is the time. Because the white is really the last thing that we're doing. Okay. So remember, I would love to see what everybody does. If you can post it, that would be great. I'd absolutely love to see it. I'm gonna add some more stems back here. Add some darks to these guys here. I think I completely forgot to do green on this one. We are almost there. So another thing is that I think frustrates people is that we're looking at our paintings super close and we're nitpicking everything where it's really meant to be looked at from far away. So step back. And what I hear a lot of people say is, I liked it when I took a picture of it. So that gives you a nice sense of what it looks like because it kind of is like stepping away when you see it in the photo. Okay. I was just about to say trying to go overboard, but clearly that's me not listening to myself. Okay, let's select that one. I think that's it. I'm trying to see. Okay, and before we get to the white, just make sure that, you know, everything's exactly the way you want it. If you want to add some more highlights to anything, add highlights. If you want to add more of anything, whatever. If you want to fix things, do it now. But this is where we're going to do the awesome white, whatever you call those, dandelions? I don't even know. Jen is she's the one who knows everything about flowers. She's probably cursing me out right now because these are made up. I don't know. Just kidding. She would never do that, ever. She would just tell me what they were. All right. So you need a clean, dry middle brush, and you need some paint that's not mixed with a million other colors like mine, but I'm going to try to salvage it. So again, we're going to start by flattening the brush like this. We don't need a whole lot of paint on the brush, so we're really just going to kind of go this way. So I want you to have the other one handy too. So I want you to practice using, I used both, but I want you to practice kind of doing it with this little one, and I want you to practice with this one. I like this one because it kind of gives it like, I went over this with this big one first, and then I did the smaller one. But go slow. We're gonna do another coat. So what I did was I did this brush first. And you can kind of just mess around. I like to make pieces coming out, make it look really fluffy. And then when I got to the littler ones, like this, and again, I'm wiping my paintbrush off on my table. I'm not saying do that, but I'm kind of making it a little less goopy. So you're going to use the little brush for the little guys. And then really, like, for these little ones, all I did going through here was just kind of did shapes here and there, like with this brush. And definitely try to be as random as possible. Don't want to get into some kind of pattern. But this is the part that's really fun, and I want you to enjoy it. And don't go fast. I've taught a lot of people who, you know, don't take their time in very important parts like this. And, you know, they finish really quickly after all the work we just did. And then they're like, I don't like mine now. But I'm just stressing the take your time part. you're not, in any rush. And if you are, just shut it and come back to it later. Definitely don't want to do this when you feel like you're rushed. So as you do this, you can see that you can still notice the green in the background of your poofy. Man, I should ask Jenna what these were called. I'm going to call them dandelions. So make sure you can still see some of that awesome green that we did. And really, take as much time as you need. And go as slow as you want. It's funny, my son, I have two kids. One of them is 8, and he has to go on this math thing online, and I don't blame him, but he gets so nervous because it's like timed. I get nervous because I'm like, I don't know, just knowing that I'm timed makes me nervous. So he's like so quick to answer these questions, and he gets them all wrong. And I'm like, tell him, I'm like, would you rather have the right answers and take your time, or the wrong answers? And it's really hard for him, and I get it. And it's the same with painting, Don't ever feel like you're rushed. If you don't ever, get to a point where you're like, I gotta finish this before I go. Don't do that. Just sit down when you're ready, when you have the time, and take your time. Like I'm doing. See, I'm going very slow, because the last thing I want to do is zoom through. Look, we did so much work here. So I would hate for you to zoom through just to get to the end and be like, not like it, or not be happy with it. So I like to use this middle brush because it kind of gives it that almost like, it looks like almost movement in a weird way. But don't feel compelled to do what I'm doing if you don't like it. And then once I have these guys down, then I like to go back with this, and I kind of do some dots instead to make it kind of tone down that movement. And also I like to have some fluffiness coming out. And there's no point where you can't go back and work on something else. Never. You're only done when you say you're done. So just because I'm moving on to something else doesn't mean you have to move on to something else. And when I'm done doesn't mean you could, you have to say you're done by any means at all. So, even when this video is over and you want to play around a little bit, feel free. This one's fun to play around with. These guys are so fun. I love it. And you get your little system down. It's funny because, I've painted with so many people, and I love that innately people have their ways of doing certain things, like trees. And I love, for doing trees, I walk around and I see how different people's trees are. And they're all so beautiful in their own way, and how different everybody interprets trees. It's really cool. I absolutely love what I do. So you could go back, you could add stems, you could do whatever later if you want darker stems, lighter stems, whatever you want to do, you can do. I feel like the fluffier they look, I like the better, the bigger the wish. It's like when I do animals, I feel like the fatter they are, the cuter they are. I just love fat animals. Right. I hope everybody's relaxed and in a zone. I mean, this will get you, if you aren't already in a meditative state, this will get you there. So, see how we're doing on time. Perfect. Doing great. I was trying to keep it under 2 hours or around 2 hours. Don't ask me why. I have no idea why. I guess because when I was doing these live, it's always around 2 hours. Or I say it's always 2 hours and we're sat there for like 3. I hope you're enjoying this part because it's my favorite. Oh, I hope I'm not sitting in front of the camera. I hope I wasn't doing that. Okay. Well, it's supposed to rain all weekend, so I love painting when it's raining. Almost like I think like when it's really nice out and I'm painting, I kind of feel guilty about staying inside and painting. Maybe I just feel less guilty when it rains, but I don't know. I love painting when it rains. So you get plenty of painting time this weekend. Well, at least we're not getting any snow. I think I'm right with that. Very mild winter we got. And I'm not complaining. I'm not a huge fan of shoveling. We've got a very long driveway. God, I have boys that love to shovel. I don't know why I'm talking about snow when I'm doing a spring painting, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to more springy stuff and then summery stuff. I'm not sure if we're gonna all miss spring, but at least we can paint it. Now I'm in the zone and I'm not talking. That's why I love this one, because it gets you in nice state of mind. Another thing is, don't always paint stuff that you know you're good at. Maybe try some stuff that challenges you, because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you do the most growing. And it sounds like I totally contradicted myself, because before I said when you paint you're supposed to be comfortable, but that's a whole different thing. When you should try things that are out of your comfort zone, like those paintings, those Van Gogh type paintings we do sometimes, and it's totally not the way I paint at all, but I absolutely can. It gives me a completely new appreciation for Van Gogh and maybe the state of mind he was in while he painted that, his paintings. And now I love painting like that. It's not typically how I paint, but once in a while I'll do a Van Gogh inspired thing, and I always enjoy it. So we're getting near the end here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. But if you didn't, don't tell anyone. No, I'm only kidding. If you didn't, make sure, to let me know what what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, what you want to do more of. I'd really like to know all that stuff. So I'd appreciate any feedback at all. Getting to my last poppies. I'll do one more around here. I'm definitely poppy crazy here. Put some teeny tiny ones maybe. Really, you could definitely, this whole section seems kind of bare. These are just floating poppies. Well, here's what I meant before if you want to, add stuff later. I'm making these poppies here, but I never made stems. So I'm just going to go back and make some stems for them. So you can definitely sit back and take a look and see, balance it out, see where more poppies need to be added, see where maybe some more highlights need to go. Yeah, I could do this forever, so I should probably end soon. I'm just going to add a couple stems over there. And take some green and add some stems there. I think I like a couple floating ones. Ooh, I totally forgot one. Well, can't leave that. All right, so it was a pleasure painting with you, and I hope you learned some stuff. And I hope you come back for some more and enjoy your weekend. And well, you might not be painting this on a Friday, but enjoy, life. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to paint with me. All right, bye.